an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. In this episode, Rashawn and I will be talking about chapters 22, 23, and 24, Arya, Daenerys, and Bran. In these chapters, Arya hates it in King's Landing. And who can blame her?
Really, who can blame her?
Bran hates it in the tower he's stuck in. And who can blame him?
Really, who can blame him?
But Daenerys, she's doing all right.
She's doing fine.
Welcome to Unspoiled. Some spoiled, some spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Rashawn.
So, okay, where to start on this section? I mean, I guess we could just start from the beginning with Arya.
Yeah, let's just go right through it.
I just have so many thoughts on this reread.
Yeah. Do you? I really, really enjoyed these three chapters. Honestly, and for the first time, really, while I was reading them, I wasn't doing that thing where I was searching desperately for when this was in the show and what was this the same. That didn't happen until the second time when I listened to it. But I was just engrossed with the first run through. So that was very exciting for me.
Nice.
I just, all three of these, great chapters.
They are, right? The Arya chapter, I really feel like getting older has just increased my capacity for empathy in a way that I didn't realize was lacking in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
You're just like, oh, wow, I didn't feel as bad for this person the first time. And now I'm like, what kind of monster was I to not feel as sorry for her as I should have?
Was your heart not breaking?
Like, this girl
the first time
is realizing that people are not on her side the way that she thought they would be. And I swear to God, it is so awful to read and to, like, know how many kids go through that kind of thing.
She's so alone. She's feeling so alone. She is carrying a tremendous amount of guilt. And she's just so sad. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
My heart was breaking for her. She is homesick. She is at, my God, it's a meal. Is it dinner?
Yeah, and her dad isn't quite there when she first sits down, and he comes
right.
in. Is quite a temper.
And she's aware that the way she says it too, like he's had like another. So you get the idea that this is like almost every day now. Like her father is in bad temper. She is aware of it, and she is, Sansa is still not really talking to her at all, and Sansa has a friend, this Jane Poole, so Sansa Arya doesn't have that, so they're like eating and they're like way far away from Arya and, not talking to her. And we get this sort of this memory of Arya's of about what it used to be like at Winterfell, you know, at dinner, and how her father used to have a different person come and sit with him. And, you know, it would be like, you know, one day it would be the guy in charge of the horses, or it'd be the guy in charge of the arms, or, you know, whoever it was. And they would talk to her father, and she used to just listen, and how much she loved being able to hear all these different stories, you know, knights, and sometimes it'd be free riders, and how much pleasure she got from that. And that's all gone.
Yep.
You know, and now her father is this man who is grumpier than he used to be, to put it mildly.
Indeed.
You know, there's not the sort of camaraderie that they experienced when they were home. She misses her brothers terribly. She misses John. And again, this guilt that she is carrying, especially for Micah.
Yeah.
You guys,
I think that part of my my lack of empathy that I had, it wasn't even so much that I didn't feel bad for her as much as she blames herself for what happened to Micah. And I couldn't understand that because it was so clearly somebody else with so much power. Like, that the fact that she blamed herself, I was just like, girl, no. What? And I just, like, I didn't even exactly try to see how she could feel that way. I just was like, no, that's wrong. Right. And now I understand so much more about how that sort of thing works. And, like, it doesn't have to be particularly logical, even if you're an adult. And this is a child who has multiple people telling her it's her fault. Yeah, of course she would feel that way.
You know, and the thing, too, about children, in general, I don't know if it's fair to say it translates to this, but I'm going to do it anyway. What we know about children is that they tend to view the world as though they're sort of the center of attention. And that sounds shitty, but really what that means is they tend to think that they are responsible for everything that's happening around them.
Yeah.
You know, if their parents are getting divorced, it must be their fault, because that's how children, you know, interact with the world.
I think that's what my problem, because I was never like that as a kid. I didn't probably take responsibility for maybe some shit that I should have. I was just like, no, it's not on me. What? So I just didn't get it. But yeah, you're right.
But so like when she breaks down with Ned and she's crying and she's saying that, you know, Micah was out playing with her at her request, and somehow that makes her responsible for what happened to him. That's such a leap, but it's a very childish leap. You know, it is the way, you know, children tend to think, where like A goes to B.
Yeah.
And for them it makes sense, but they're not, you know, like, because she understands that Joffrey is, you know, ultimately responsible.
Right.
Right? She gets that, but it does not diminish her feelings of guilt at all. Because for her, if she hadn't asked Micah to play, then they wouldn't have been in that situation. Joffrey wouldn't have had a chance to do what he did. And then when she talks about what they had to do to get Nymeria to leave, because, you know, they had to throw rocks at her, and that she, oh my God, you guys, it was too much. It was too much. I just, and you know, again, memory fuzzy. I feel like my memory of Arya in King's Landing before everything goes completely left is her being kind of like sullen and misbehaving. You know, her being sort of
uncooperative,
petulant, uncooperative. What I don't remember is any sort of like deep sadness. I don't remember, like, her feeling like she's weighed down by guilt. Again, not saying the show didn't do it or not. I'm just saying that's not what I remember taking away from it.
Yeah.
If I did, it was, however long ago, it didn't stick with me. It got, written over by subsequent seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So this chapter was just like, I was reading it and just like wanting to, oh baby, no,
right?
This is not your fault. And when she tells the to fucking you clean it.
Oh my God.
Girl.
Gets up and fucking storms out, and I was just kind of like, good, go, sweetie, get out of there.
That's some white people shit. I wish I would have stormed my ass off from the dinner table.
Yeah,
that's not happening.
I feel like I as a child, it wouldn't even have occurred to me to behave like this, but I definitely pulled this shit when I was like a teenager.
Oh yeah, no,
as a teenager, I was much more like, also just out of control of my emotions was also a big factor. But the one that got me is Jane Poole had told Arya that he'd cut him up in so many pieces that they'd given him back to the butcher in a bag, and that at first the poor man had thought it was a pig they'd slaughtered. Which, like, we saw the body, and that's not how that went. But what a fucking horrifying story.
What, like, and it's just cruel.
Yeah.
Clearly done to just be cruel.
And then, and no one had raised a voice or drawn a blade or anything. Not Harwin, who always talked so bold, or Alan, who was going to be a knight, or Jory, who was captain of the guard. Not even her father. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, God, honey, I'm so sorry.
Like, watching all the people that you were so sure would always be on the side of right and stand for what's right and good and, like, be brave.
Yep.
And seeing them all,
made small. Made small.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, definitely in her eyes. And probably in their eyes, too, if they were to admit it.
True.
But that's, I mean, as readers, right, or as adults or whatever, I'm barely an adult. We understand that in that moment, like, what was Ned going to do? Mm-hmm. Raise up against his king?
Yeah.
But it's that thing, too. Like, I don't know if anybody listening has an experience where you see, like, one of your parents or someone that you hold in high regard, and you witness them, maybe it's around, like, their job,
mm-hmm.
or maybe you see them with someone that has great authority over them, and you kind of have to watch this person that, as far as you were concerned, would take on the world
mm-hmm.
and would never take disrespect. You have to kind of watch them eat a big old plate of shit.
Yep.
And the first time you witness that, as a kid, you're just like, wait a minute, hold up. You always talking that smack though, mm-hmm. but now, I have to, now that it's your boss telling you to do this thing, or maybe it's your landlord that comes by and, we don't have rent ready, so your parents have to, like, kind of debase themselves a little bit, in order to get that extension on the rent, or whatever the circumstance may be, where you are witnessing the limitations that exist
mm-hmm.
for someone who you thought there were no limits,
mm-hmm.
And that is, not only is it almost impossible for a child to understand that, but it's kind of earth-shattering, because it is upending the way they thought the world worked.
Yeah.
I just had a tremendous amount of empathy for her in this chapter. I was so sad.
Yeah, it's, I think that your point about how the show failed to really get across the sadness and really just made her angry is part of what I internalized and forgot about the guilt and just the grief. It's grief. She lost her friend, you know? Mm-hmm. And that not only did she lose her friend, but nobody cares because he was just a nobody. Like, her father cares in that it hurt his daughter, but the kid does not matter to her father.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And
I think the wrongness of the situation matters more to Ned than the actual little boy.
Right, exactly.
You know?
And I'm just like, when you were saying, like, watching somebody that you thought, it's, for me, it's less like watching somebody eat shit than watching somebody just not do the right thing in a moment. And it's a weird moment, but I remember so vividly. I was like, young teenager, probably like 13, and I was with my mom at Walgreens, and there was an old woman cashier who was training a young woman, and she was being absolutely vicious to this like teenage girl she was training, to the point that all the customers were like looking at each other. Because at one point, the girl was trying to do something by herself, and you could see the girl was almost in tears in front of everybody. And she asked the woman for help, and you could see that she would have given anything to not have to ask again. But she had to because she didn't understand. And the woman said to the customer she was waiting on, "This girl doesn't know her ass from her elbow. Excuse me." And walked away to, like, help this girl and just, like, berated her and was just like, "It's right there. I've showed you this 12 times." And was just... And I was watching this, and I could see every adult there was horrified. But did anybody say anything to this vicious old bitch? No, not a soul. And I remember walking out of there and being like, I should have said something. Why didn't I say anything? I should have said something. And I think back, and I'm like, because I was the child, and I was surrounded by adults who should have known better and said something, including my own mother, and nobody said anything. And they were all customers, which means if they had gone up against this woman, they would have been in a position of power. They could have really gotten her in trouble for the way she was behaving and utilized that in a good way. And nobody did. And just that really was like a formative moment for me of realizing how much, if I don't stand up for a person, I will regret it afterward. And just kind of like wormed its way into like the core of who I am. Of just being like, I am absolutely going to bat because I don't want to walk away with that feeling again of just knowing that I left somebody in that situation. And she probably like burst into tears not long after we left and maybe got fired or quit or who knows what. And that old bitch went on to terrorize another fucking newbie and just probably like has, you know, just probably traumatized multiple people because she's a terrible person.
Right. You know, it's when you tell that story too, I can't help but think of the young cashier who was probably incredibly aware, not of just that people are watching and feeling humiliated, but people are watching and no one is standing up for me.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep. Like, I felt ashamed of myself leaving. And knowing that I had been standing there watching and I had just sort of waited for somebody else to say something because I assumed somebody would. I had, and by the time we left and I realized we were walking out that door and nobody had done anything, I just felt like sick about the fact that I had also just stood there. And I was like, I guess everybody was just waiting for somebody else to say something. Is that what just happened? Like, yeah. Well,
people, you know, that's a whole other podcast. But, you know, so when you tell that story, it's a good example because, you know, Arya is someone who used to like to sit and listen to all these grand stories from all these people. And then in the moment where she's expecting to see them behave the way they behave in all the stories they tell, like, they're all just standing around with their dick in their hand.
Yep.
And again, I don't want people feeling the need to write in and explain to me why no one did anything. Like, I get it.
Right, yeah.
But yeah. So she leaves the hall. tells him she don't give a fuck about that plate, and runs up to her room and locks herself in. And,
oh my God, can I tell you something real small that I found like amazing in the moment?
Oh, yeah.
The chapter opens with how she's like eating a thick, sweet soup made with pumpkin. And then when her father sits down, he gets they're serving ribs that are coated,
with,
roasted in a crust of garlic and herbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading this, eating a pumpkin soup that I made that was topped with short ribs. And I was just like, oh, I would have been so hungry reading this chapter, but thanks to me, I got this exact fucking menu, baby. So, anyway, I just really felt myself in that moment.
That just worked out.
It did. It was good.
Pumpkin soup, though?
Is that a joke? Are you high right now? Did you just say pumpkin soup like that's a question?
Yeah.
I can't form a sentence. What do you mean? You've never had pumpkin soup?
I am not a huge fan of pumpkin as a food group. Like,
You just hurt me with that. Let me tell you.
I'm sorry. So that's a thing, huh? Pumpkin soup.
Oh my God. It's like one of the best soups out there. It's really thick due to the pumpkin, so it's super creamy, but it's not like loaded with milk and cream, so it's not horrible for you. And I do the sauté onions, a little bit of garlic, and chopped up apples, and sauté it all together. A little bit dash of like apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar can work, and then toss in some ground cinnamon, a little bit of ground cloves, a little bit of ground ginger, maybe a little nutmeg, I'm feeling it. And then you deglaze the whole thing with some bone broth, stock, something. And then I toss in some chopped up potatoes, some chopped up carrots, let that simmer, and then I pour in the pumpkin. I let it all simmer, and then I use an immersion blender, and I blend it until it's like velvety smooth, and it's like just a little sweet. It's got that cinnamon bit to it. It's got that onion underneath, so that's like this nice like caramelized flavor. Oh, girl, you're making me want to go get that soup again. I have it right in my fridge. Now I'm thinking about it.
I will. Excuse me. Take your word for it.
I can't. Oh, man. You don't know. That's tragic to me.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I have a very unrefined palate. You know this.
It's one thing to like not have tried a thing. It's another thing to not have heard of a thing.
I mean, who in my life is going to be talking to me about pumpkin soup?
I've posted about the soup, the pumpkin soup I make multiple times. It comes up in my memory. I'm going to share a memory, and I'm going to tag you in it, and I'm just going to be like, you see?
I guess. So, that short rib did sound good, though. I'm not going to lie. When I was reading it, I was like, oh, ribs.
Yeah.
Ribs, see, ribs I know about.
I love ribs. Gotta be cooked for long enough, but like, oh.
So good.
Any meat that has to be cooked for a long time because it's like so full of like fat and whatnot, I'm just here for it.
You can't go wrong. Mm-hmm. And she is so upset she can't even finish this food, which I thought sounded delicious. And she runs up to her room, and someone comes up.
Fat Tom. He says, "Are you in there?" And she says, "No." And he goes away, and she's like, "Yeah, that's right. You were always stupid." Girl, he knows you're in there. What do you think you just did? He had always been easy to fool.
When I first read it, I was like, hold up. I was like, does she...
Yes.
And then I read it again, and I was like, oh my God, that's adorable. And then Ned comes.
I love that everybody else, she's like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not opening this door.
Right.
And the instant he shows up and is like, sweetie, we got to talk. She opens it. No question.
Right. So she had when she goes up to her room, she goes tearing through her stuff to get Needle out. Because that's the first person that what's the fucking septa's name? Is it
Mordain? I think.
Mordain.
Septa Mordain.
And she comes up, and Arya's on the other side of the door with Needle, like, you better not come in here.
Oh, my God. She's out here just like, I'll cut her up. I'll cut her into pieces. Calm down. Holy shit.
She is just like, she's just so fucking aggy. Like, bitch, you're like 9. Calm down. So when Ned comes and she opens the door, she still has Needle in her hand. And he is like, what's all this about?
I forgot he didn't know about it.
Right? And she did too.
Right?
So he wants to know where she got it, and she does not drop a dime on Jon. Mm-mm. I was so impressed. I was super, super impressed. I was like, oh, see, she a G. She knows.
And she sees he sees Micken's mark and is like, did you get a fucking tiny sword from my own fucking blacksmith and I don't know about it?
Like, he's like, what the fuck am I doing? But, and I feel, I don't know if we get confirmation if it comes up later, but in my heart, I feel like he knows that Jon is behind this. I don't have anything to base that on. But, like, I feel like he knows that she didn't just go get that shit made.
Right.
So it would have to be one of the boys. And of the boys, who would do something like this? It's got to be Jon. I don't even know if that's important or if it matters. But because he doesn't press her on it.
Right.
I feel like he's kind of, like, got his own ideas about it. And he has this talk with her. This really warm, loving, but like grown up conversation with her. And I think more than anything, she is so moved because she recognizes that he is treating her like a grown up.
Yeah, agreed.
And he's telling her a lot of different things. One of them is that, we are not home anymore. Mm-hmm. We are in a place that is dangerous.
Yeah.
The behavior that we all kind of laughed and thought was cute at Winterfell, you can't do that here because there are people, who will use any kind of dissension amongst us against us.
Yeah.
So we can't be fighting each other. And he talks about like how her and Sansa have got to get their shit together. And and she is like, I feel like, part terrified by what he's saying, and also like there's a bit when she starts telling him like, that she's strong too. He doesn't have to worry. She can be strong. Mm-hmm. Which is another like really kid thing to do. Mm-hmm. Is to tell your parents, that they don't have to worry that you can be, you're stronger than you look, and that you can be strong for them.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just so good.
Yeah, I really was sort of touched too by when he says something about how like she reminds him of his sister Lyanna. Mm-hmm. And he says, and you even look like her. And she says, but Lyanna was beautiful and is just not used to anybody ever saying that about her. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, she was. And she was also wild and she died really young.
Yeah, yeah. And he tells her, too, that she has, what is it, like the wolf spirit or whatever? Or touch of the wolf. And he says that Lyanna had it and so did
Brandon.
Brandon had it. And then now they're both fucking dead.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like a, warning to her, like you have to be careful because, this, I don't know, we'll just keep calling it what he called it, this type of spiritedness can lead you into danger. Mm-hmm. If you're not careful, if you don't think about what you're doing, if you're just reacting all the time without thinking, that can be very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
if you're just led by your emotions and you don't think about the things that you're doing or the things that you're saying, that can be very dangerous too. And y'all, that's some real talk.
Yep.
It just is. That's some real shit.
And he couches this in the words of the house, which is winter is coming. And he's just like, you fucking around and acting up, that's fine in summertime. But we are here in a place with people who do not care about us, do not like us, actively mean us ill. And winter is coming. And you can't be behaving like a summer child now.
He says that the sadness and the tragedy that occurred on the way to King's Landing was just like a taste of what's coming. Like that was like the first signs that winter was coming, and that type of unpleasantness and tragedy and heartache is waiting to come into their lives even more.
Yep.
That it will be here shortly, and that's some fucking harrowing news to get.
Yeah. When you have like one of the most tragic things happen to you ever in your life, to be told that that's just the start of it.
Just the beginning.
That's never what you want to fucking hear.
Yeah. And you know what? As we know now, you know, those of us that are spoiled, which I'm assuming is all of us here, it's true. This stuff that happens on the King's Road on the way into King's Landing, it really is the beginning of just so much more heartache that is in store for these characters.
Yeah.
I think that's the other reason why this chapter was so heartbreaking, because, you know, I do know where a lot of this is going. And to see her have this moment with her father, and knowing that there's not going to be too many of those moments left, was also just kind of sad.
Yeah. She has, like, tasted real grief with this thing with her friend, but she still has an iron support, a foundation of her dad to go to, and that is not going to be there. Ugh, I feel myself getting all choked up.
You know, like when she's, you know, runs to her room crying, and he is the only one she opens the door for. Like, that's the whole thing. He's the only one that she would open the door for, and we know that he is not going to be here much longer. And it is hard to get a chapter like this, knowing what we all know.
Yeah,
you know, it was rough. I was choked up a bit. I got a little choked up with each of these chapters, actually, for different reasons, but I absolutely did. So he tells her that she can keep Needle. And we get her chapter ends with her getting lessons from Illyrio.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. We're not gonna talk about that voice.
Oh,
in the audiobook.
I read this and I didn't hear the audiobook voice. What? I didn't listen to anything except Bran's chapter.
It just, you know, it's what you would expect.
I don't know what I expect. Is he a pirate also?
What I thought was weird is that in the text, right, like Arya says when she meets Illyrio, she thinks to herself, his accent, you know, and he sounds like he sounds like he's from a free city, maybe Bravos or Mir, right? But that is not the voice that you're getting in that audio book. That motherfucker sound like he from Winterfell too.
Okay. Because I was about to be like, how do you know what Bravos and Mir accents sound like? But if he just sounds like everybody else, then yeah. I kind of expected, because I feel like this is a thing with the way that he speaks, is there's like I know that I feel like Brendan did a bit of like a Italian thing, like a bit of a Super Mario thing.
No, let's not do that.
Yeah, and and I don't even feel like it was that extreme, but it was, you know, yeah, the way it is heavy as it needs to be to make you strong, and for the balancing, just so. One hand now is all that is needing. Yeah, I feel like that was like we went with a bit of an Italian sound to his voice. But now you make me want to go and listen to it because I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah, you can check that out. You know, it only 30 seconds will do. Yeah. So she's getting these dancing lessons, and he keeps calling her boy. Mm-hmm. And then after like the third or fourth time, she's just like, she gets really upset. I am a girl. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, I was like, why would she get that upset? That seems out of character. But he is like, it doesn't matter.
He says, boy, girl, you're a sword.
A sword, right?
That's pretty badass, actually.
When he says something similar when she's talking about, you know, that it's too heavy. And she says, what if I drop it? And he's like, would you drop your arm? Like, what are you talking about? What if you drop it?
It is to be part of your arm.
So we have her having a couple lessons with him, and she's just supposed to like tag him, and it's all day, and she can't even like hit him one time.
I love it so
I love
much.
He throws it at her. He throws the sword at her, mm-hmm. and because first she shows up, and he's like, "You're late. Tomorrow you'll be on time." And it's like, and then he throws the thing at her, and she drops it. He's like, "And tomorrow you will catch it."
That's that speak it and create it attitude
basically,
that he's trying to do there.
It's like a fucking vision board and shit happening. So her chapter's in, I think, with her getting those lessons.
Yes. And he calls himself her dancing master.
Yeah. I like this a little bit. It's not really, doesn't really go with anything. I don't think it's that important, but I enjoyed it. He says, men are made of water, and when you cut them, they leak.
When you poke a hole in them, the water leaks out and they die.
And at first I was like, that's not right. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what?
That's exactly right. It's
like, close enough.
I love, too, that she says to stick him with the pointy end to her dad. And he can't help but, like, kind of snort a little bit. And he's like, well, I mean, yeah.
like technically that is true.
So then we go to Daenerys. And she is finally coming into her own after some bad times that she has at first.
Yeah. It's you know, this is picking up, you know, they're on their way to Vaes
Dothrak.
Vaes Dothrak, right? Which is, if I remember, that's like the holy city kind of.
Yeah.
Right? Where all the old ladies go.
Right.
When the cows die. And alright, so she is riding, and it's not pleasant. Mm-mm. She has got blisters and chafing, and, you know, everything hurts. And then every night, Cal's sliding in there, you know.
Literally and figuratively.
Right? And, you know, she's so sore, and it's, you know, it just doesn't seem like it's a good time. Mm-hmm. There's mention that he takes her from the back, which is the Dothraki way. And I'm just like, George Martin.
Like horses do, Rashawn. Get it?
You know, like, I really, sir.
Yeah.
Fine line. Fine fucking line you're on. But okay. Yeah, I didn't love that. But then she has this dream again. Wait, let me make sure I'm going in order. Yeah, she has the dream when she's still like having a hard time, right? Mm-hmm. She has the dragon dream that she had before, but this time her brother's not in it.
Yeah.
And she wakes up from this dream and is low-key a whole different person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it said she could hear the flames singing to her from the dragon's mouth. She dreams about this dragon, like, burning her. And she opens her arms to it and lets it, like, sear her clean. And it makes her stronger and fiercer. And she's, like, reborn. And when she wakes up, she kind of feels really reborn. She's just not in as much pain. And everybody's like, what's up with you? And she's like, I don't know.
Right?
But,
like
it's good.
you know, like all of a sudden like her skin like toughens up and starts to heal. And, you know, she's able to ride, like, and there's this whole bit about how much she loves riding and like how free it feels and how connected she is with her horse. And there's a bit about how there's like the handmaids, and one of them is supposed to be teaching her to ride, but she's actually learning more just from her horse than she is from her teacher. And it's just like this whole scene of her like coming into her own as both we all know the dragon,
right,
but also as like Khaleesi, right? And just like coming into herself and into her own power, and it's really remarkable to read. And we get there's a quick moment where she notices like one of the dragon eggs feel warm to the touch, and she's just like, it must be because they were out in the sun. And then like a little bit later in the chapter, there's this moment, I think, where she feels like she sees light on them, maybe?
They seem to sparkle, yeah. And she's just like, what?
Right? What the fuck is going on over there? I got so excited because I know what's going on over there. And I love, again, can't remember how the show did it exactly, so I don't know if they made it a point to have these little moments with the eggs or not. Can't remember. So I love reading that it feels like the more she comes into her own, like somehow the dragon eggs are also like being, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to...
Awakened?
Yeah, that's a good word, right? Like as much as she's awakening inside of herself, the dragon eggs seem to be awakening, like with her, like they're both on this journey together, like it's intertwined,
right?
You know,
right.
Which was so really cool to read. Again, my memory is that she gets the eggs, she lugs them around, and then there's a big fire, and then she has dragons.
Okay, then.
You know, so like these little moments where it just really does feel like they are already sort of symbiotic, you know? Like they are, I don't know, it's just great.
Yeah, I really, like, the whole thing with her trying to... Because there's a point at which she's like, I am going to have to kill myself. I hate this so much.
Yeah,
I am in so much pain. This dude is coming around and, like, I am in pain while we have sex and everything sucks.
That's the night she has the dream, I think.
Right. And I was talking to you about this, like, last week, I think. It made me think of... when you decide to start something new that takes a lot of physicality, and it's something that you or your body really isn't familiar with, there is a long period of just kind of wondering why you're doing this to yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't know about any of that.
So I'm in the 5th month of a 6-month weightlifting course. And I have done physical stuff before. Like, I have worked on fitness a lot in my life in fits and spurts. And I know that there is a threshold where you have to get past this bad part. And once you get past it, it's not like you're suddenly super fit, but your body suddenly seems to, like, adjust and work with you in a way that it hasn't been up until that point. And with this weightlifting thing, I just... thought it would come sooner than it did. It felt like around 3 months should be what I should expect. And it took about 4.5 months. And you do get to a spot where you start to feel like, I barely feel like I'm moving forward anymore. Like, what am I doing? I'm not getting anywhere. Like, I'm in pain all the time. My body is sore. I keep having to make myself go back out there, even though I don't feel like there's anything to show for it later on. And then all of a sudden, it feels really sudden because you have felt frustrated for so long. And then you come out on the other side after a workout that you felt good and strong. And you're like, Oh, that's the thing when your body's like part of your friend. Your body's working with you. You're working together. And I just really felt for her in that, like, having the sores and the blisters that break and are bleeding, and she can barely sit, and all, like, horrifying. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, her body is just like, all right, I mean, I guess if you're serious, you know, and it's like, well, I thought I was before, but if this is how long it took you to catch on, then fine.
We're just glad you're on board.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I just, you know, I love the like almost 180 that she does when she comes out the other side of this. And then we get, like, she's really starting to feel herself. And that, you know, you love to see it. And then we have, I think she wants to ride off ahead a little bit alone.
Yeah, and take her boots off and just be like in the grass.
And she tells everyone to stay back. And Viserys' raggedy ass is on this trek with them. He should have stayed his ass at home. Yep. Is what he should have did. But, you know, he's on his whole, you know, I want to make sure, you know, I get my due. Like they're all just going to, like, abscond in the middle of the night and, like, run off with his, you know, sister and not pay him what he's owed, which is basically what he's saying. So he's going to, like, stay with them until he gets what he's supposed to get. And she tells everybody to just chill, and she goes up a little bit, and she, you know, takes off her boots, and she's, like, just being present in herself and in this moment. And here he comes, all huffing and puffing, because he done raced after her.
And he's wearing, like, his city clothes and, like, ring mail.
And looks a mess. He's dirty. Everything is disgusting and ill-fitting and raggedy looking. And he's all, like, panting and shit. He stops his horse and, like, reins up too hard and then almost falls off the fucking thing. And he's still trying to be like he's in charge. You look a mess. You are a whole mess. Everything you just did was messy. And he is, you know, goes to attack her. And, like, how dare you give me orders? Don't you know who I am?
He grabs her by the tit.
Yeah, and, like, digs his hands in. And for a moment, she is right back. Because it hasn't been that long. You know, there's a moment where, for, like, just a second, she's the same little sister that he abuses. And then she's like, hold up, no, I'm not that anymore.
Yeah.
And she pushes him off of her. And he gives her a look like he is about to really fuck her shit up.
Yeah.
And then the magic happens.
Yeah, Jogo, I think it is, right? One of the Blood Riders.
They have caught up to them, and all she says she hears the sound of a whip before she even realizes what's happening. And they have got this whip around Viserys' neck and have yanked him back from her on his ass like he fucking deserves. And he can't breathe, and he's sputtering and crying, and they're just like, should we kill him for you?
And don't you wish she just was like, yeah.
That would have been amazing. That would have been just amazing. But she's like, no. And then they're like, well, you know, you could take an ear. I love his persistence in trying to get Viserys fucked up.
Coro thinks you should take an ear to teach him respect. Meanwhile, Viserys is kneeling with his windpipe being crushed, trying to breathe. And she's like, no, I'm not going to harm him. And everybody around her, you can kind of feel them be like,
a little disappointed.
Because, I mean,
So
who amongst them does not hate this dude? I'm sure everybody fucking talks shit about him all day.
You know they hate him.
Yep.
You know they have hated him from the beginning, and they continue to hate him all the way up to the end. He is just probably insufferable and never shuts up. He probably complains about everything the whole time, even though you don't even go here. You could have stayed home. So, when they were all disappointed, I was also disappointed. But, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, what can you do?
Can't always get what you want.
You know, what she does decide is to make him walk.
Yeah.
Which is like the next best thing to killing him. It's the lowest of the low as far as the threat you're concerned. You know, if you cannot ride, you are not a man. Which comes back later to bite us all in the ass. But for right now, you know, I enjoy it. And they take his horse from him, and he fucking sits down on the ground and pouts.
Yep.
Like the big baby he is. And then she feels a little bit guilty, and we have a conversation with her and Ser Jorah.
Yeah, what'd you think of this?
So a couple of things. So Daenerys 1 is just like, is he gonna be alright? Will he find us? You know? And Jorah's like, bitch, what else is there to find out here but us?
Right.
What are you talking about?
We're leaving a 2-mile wide trail.
We're a fucking, she says that they're basically like a city on the march. You know, that's how many of them there is. And that there are, you know, lookouts at the front, at the back, on the sides, you know. He can find us. But I like the moment where, and I kind of like breezed over this, but Viserys tries to tell Jorah that he should be killing these people to protect his rightful king.
Right.
You know? And he looks at Viserys, and he looks at Daenerys, and she says she could see on his face who he chose. So they have a conversation, and she is saying she said something like, I think, you know, first she can't believe that she pushed her brother off of him. She just can't even believe that was her. And then she is a little fearful, and she's like, oh, you know, I did it this time. I think she says something like, I may have really woken the dragon or some nonsense. And also, wake the dragon, or you're going to wake the dragon, or however other ways he says it.
He says, can you wake the dead?
Well, no, that's Jorah, but no,
okay.
I'm sidebarring for a second.
Okay.
Every time Viserys says that, you know, you're going to wake the dragon, all I can think is it's something that a guy would say about his dick.
I know, right? Exactly. I think that's purposeful, too.
Okay.
I think that, like, that there is meant to be a bit of a, like, parallel there, honestly.
Okay. All right.
Maybe that's just an accidental thing, but 100%.
I'm glad it's not just
because
me.
he's also got like this weird lustfulness with her. I mean, he grabs her by the tit. That is how he chooses to like assault her. It's very specific.
Yeah, there's definitely some. I feel like it's not explicit in the books, but I feel like it's supposed to be understood that there was definitely some something happening there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, especially considering the Targaryens, and he's got this, you know, weird warped family, you know, thing where I'm sure he thinks it's perfectly natural and reasonable to be lusting after his little sister, if not doing even more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole way he attacks her, and this isn't the first time. I think earlier in the book there was something about how he like pinched her nipples really hard. Yeah, he's gross. Yeah. He's just terrible. But so she's saying to Jorah how she's, you know, afraid that she may have really done it this time. And Jorah is like, unless you think you can wake the dead, because, you know, the last dragon was so-and-so. Was, who does he say? Is it Rhaegar?
Rhaegar. Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon, and he died on the Trident. Viserys is less than the shadow of a snake.
Yeah. And she is like, you're supposed to be his sworn, like, whatever.
Yep.
And he's like, well, what does that say about me then? Which is that, like, self-deprecating Jorah kind of MO, right?
Yeah, he's got a lot of regrets.
Yeah. I'm so terrible. I'm so terrible.
What was that? You sounded like some sort of spirit.
That's my impersonation of Jorah. I'm awful. No one will ever forgive me.
Oh,
Why
God.
would you love me?
I forgot, too, that he's specifically described as being, like, really hairy. And,
yes.
But no hair on his head, just, like, on his entire body.
Yeah.
And
it's, like,
no
short,
neck.
bristled black hair, too. Like, coarse black hair. Very different than he was cast on the show. Mm-hmm. That guy was very fair. So he's... And they start to have a conversation about, like, because she's, like, repeating all the things that she's been told all these years. Like, aren't there people sewing banners of the dragons waiting for us to come back? Mm-hmm. And he says, well, what if he did get on the throne? Like, what kind of king would he be? Mm-hmm. Would he be a good king? And she says out loud for the first time ever, no.
Yeah.
Not only would he not be a good king, but she says he's never even going to be on the throne. Mm-hmm. He can't lead an army, Mm-hmm. He's a fake.
Yeah.
She doesn't use that word, but this is her really, for the first time, admitting it to herself, and definitely first time ever saying it out loud to anyone, that her brother is a fraud.
Yep. And when she asks about the common people, he says, and this is highlighted by 6,074 readers, the common people pray for rain, healthy children, and a summer that never ends. It is no matter to them if the High Lords play their Game of Thrones, so long as they are left in peace. He gave a shrug. They never are.
It's true. But we're never left in peace.
Yep.
Yeah, so this, again, another chapter, and it's full of someone kind of
You're right.
coming into their own. Yeah, no, I got a little distracted, but someone kind of like facing some truths that they maybe didn't want to face. We have we talked about Arya facing some things and being given like a grown-up talk about really what's facing them, what's waiting for them. And then you have Daenerys here thinking about her brother and all the things he's told her over, her whole life, and considering them for the first time that it might not all be true.
Yeah.
And I think this ends with it ends with her having sex with the cow out in the grass, where she rides him and he calls out her name.
Yeah.
So
that's some good shit.
It's some real good shit. Yeah, just another really, really good chapter.
And she's pregnant.
To think. Well, yeah. After that night they have, where she, he comes to take her from the back, and she's like, "No, I want to look in your face," and she knows that people can see them, and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
And there's some conversation between her handmaids about the moon, which I thought was really just kind of cute.
About whether dragons came from the moon.
Because she's asking one of them, do they think the dragons might still exist, in the far cities? And they're just like, oh, no, I love it, too, because they're kind of like, girl, you talking crazy. Everybody knows there's no such thing as dragons. And then they go right into how the moon is an egg.
Yeah, it's or I think it's her Daria says that it's an egg. And it's the two women who are Dothraki that are just like, oh yeah, it's an egg. Okay. Yes. Everybody knows the moon is the sun's wife, you idiot.
It's like all three of the bits are kind of funny because they're all just like one is more ridiculous than the other.
Right.
But each is just like so sure that what they believe is the thing, and they have nothing but like kind of contempt for like what someone else thinks, which is, just real life.
That's just religion. That's all that is.
It's basically. And I want to make sure we didn't leave anything out for Daenerys, but I think do we see Viserys come back to camp in this chapter?
I think she just says by the time he gets back, everybody will have seen him walking and know him for what he is.
Right, okay.
But I don't think we actually see it.
And there's a little bit of a time jump by the time we get the reveal that she's pregnant, because they're like on the other side of the sea or wherever they were.
Right.
So, but yeah, so again, like a really, really strong chapter. I loved it.
So then we have Bran. And Bran is having a hard time. He is resentful of what happened to him, of the fact that there were all these things he was going to do that he isn't going to get to do, of the fact that while he was like in a coma, his fucking whole family disappeared practically.
Basically, yep. And he hasn't heard from anyone.
Yep.
News has been sent to King's Landing, to the Wall, and to wherever they think Cat is, and they haven't heard back from anyone.
Yep.
And they're trying to tell him, it could be, not every message makes it, he can hear Rickon outside playing, running around, that's got to sting. Rob is no fun anymore. He doesn't smile. What does he call him? He's Lord Rob now.
Yeah.
Oh, Rob the Lord.
Rob the Lord in capitals.
This guy's no fun.
Yep.
So he's stuck up in this room with old Nan, and it's gotten to the point where he's like tired of her stories, which he used to love. But he's oh my God, there's a fucking line about his 8th name day has come and gone. He's practically grown now.
Yep. Because he starts crying, and he's just like, I can't be crying.
I'm 8 now.
Sweetie. Do you know where your balls are yet? Come on.
Nope, they haven't even dropped.
Nope.
He hasn't seen them yet. Oh my God. And I feel like there may have been a real quick throwaway line about Hodor very early.
Yeah.
But now we like meet him kind of for the first time, really. And there's a long thing about old Nan because Bran is just like really over her and her story. So there's a like backstory for her, how old she is, how she has nursed so many Brans that are all just one Bran in her head now.
And she's had like many children who have had grandchildren, and they are all dead pretty much, except Hodor. He's the only one left, which I just think is tragic. Like,
well, yeah. So I want to say they get word that there's a visitor.
Right.
So Hodor has to come up and
you're jumping ahead of old Nan's story because they get interrupted when she's in the middle of telling him about the others. And
that's right. Yeah, she starts to tell you a story about a little boy who doesn't like stories.
Oh my God. And he says that his favorites are the scary ones, which brings one of my favorite lines of the series, which is just, "Oh, my sweet summer child, what do you know of fear?" And I just, like, the first time I read that, there was something about it that I was just like, oof. This woman who's lived forever and watched all of her children die is asking a very good question. And I don't like it. And I don't want to think about it.
She has a bit of it's a weird, like, suppressed laughter when she says it. Which is even, I think, just makes the whole thing even worse. Because it's just kind of like laughing at how little you know. Like, it's upsetting. I don't like when old people laugh like that. I don't care for it.
Fear is for the winter, my little lord, when the snows fall 100 feet deep and the ice wind comes howling out of the north. Fear is for the long night when the sun hides its face for years at a time and little children are born and live and die, all in darkness, while the dire wolves grow gaunt and hungry and the White Walkers move through the woods. Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swineherds in their hovels. Women smothered their children rather than see them starve, and cried, and felt their tears freeze on their cheeks. Her voice and needle fell silent, and she glanced up at Bran with pale, filmy eyes and asked, "So, child, this is the sort of story you like?" And I was like,
I don't care for it.
Right? He's like, well, I was thinking more like, a monster jumps out. But I guess we could just talk about like suffering and death that goes on forever. That's also fine. And she's like, oh, monsters. You mean the cold things that have giant ice spiders? How about that? Does that sound cool to you? And I was like, honestly, yes. That does sound kind of cool to me.
She calls them, when she's telling one story, she calls them White Walkers, right?
Yeah, she does. She says White Walkers, the others, and she brings up the Children of the Forest here as well.
Oh, right.
And it's such a frustrating thing because we know Bran's going up north eventually. And this moment where she's telling him the story of the hero who goes out with his dozen friends and his dog and his sword. And she says, like, that he searched for years. All of his friends died. Eventually his horse died, even his dog, and his sword broke. And it says, and the others smelled the hot blood in him and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders, big as hounds. And then the door opens and it's Maester Luwin who's like, hey, we got some shit to do. And I was just like, damn it, Maester Luwin, I want to know what he does. Let Bran have some advice for the future. But no.
Nope. It's when knowing how, where everything goes and with the story in general, and then knowing that there was someone like Old Man at the beginning, you do kind of wish that we had just spent a little bit more time with her.
Absolutely. Which right? I feel like is such a great metaphor for life in general.
True.
You have older people in your life that you didn't realize until it was too late and they were gone. Were like wells of information and wisdom and life experience. And then by the time you have any appreciation for that, it's just too late.
Way too late. Yep. Yeah. Oh, that just made me sad.
Yep. Sorry.
So they get, they take Bran down and, oh, excuse me.
Are we boring you?
It's, no, never.
I hate that. I hate when people say that, so I always say it just to be a bitch.
It is Tyrion and, some people that are riding with him. And he has stopped because he said, he told Jon that he would. He is not getting a very warm welcome.
He sure ain't.
And he, is surprised because, things were much friendlier when he was there not too long ago. But now that he's here by himself, and there has been an attack on Bran's life, people are a little chilly.
It's just good that there has been no message from Catelyn, because I don't know what Rob would have done if he heard that this was Tyrion's knife.
Oh, he'd have right then and there.
Right? I feel like he probably would.
Which, you know what? Would have sent the story off in the same way.
Probably.
But with no Tyrion in it. And what would that have looked like?
Yeah.
But luckily, he doesn't have that information. So he's just being surly just to be surly, I guess.
Yeah, he keeps calling him Lannister.
Yeah.
And,
wait, so yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Rob is being this way, and he does not know that his mom, has been told it was a Lannister knife or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he is acting this way because he
doesn't know it was a Lannister knife, but he knows that this happened while the Lannisters were here, and that Cersei was accused of poisoning Jon Arryn.
Oh, that's right. She told him about the Arryn thing.
Yeah, so okay, I think he just is like, yep, you're part of this.
Got you. Right, okay. I figured that there was something, but I couldn't remember what he knew and what he didn't know. I forgot about the Arryn part. Okay, so he is got his, I'm not even going to say this sentence, because it just sounds dirty. But he is sitting there, and his sword is...
Are you trying to not say he has his sword out?
Well, that's better than what I was going to say.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, what they say in the book, his sword is unsheathed. But it just...
That's not... I don't feel... Look, all right, the way it's written is he, had his sword naked across his knees.
Good Lord.
Which is, I think, much more suggestive. The naked steel exposed for all the world to see is, I think, how it's phrased. So...
Oh, it's so bad.
I'm trying to find this. Yeah, here it is. His sword was across his knees, the steel bare for all the world to see. Even Bran knew what it meant to greet a guest with an unsheathed sword. Yeah,
that's the part I was trying to avoid. But so this is
We're very mature here on Unspoiled, everybody.
Yeah, right. You see,
nothing's changed.
This is again very aggressive. And Tyrion's response is he's being, not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And kind of being a little bit dismissive of Rob. Does he call Rob boy, I think?
I think he does at one point,
Which, maybe not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
Considering, read the room.
Yeah, because Rob is basically like, all of the Night's Watch guys are welcome to spend the night. And he's like, oh, and not me? Okay, boy, I get it. And I am the lord here. I am not your boy. If you are a lord, you might learn a lord's courtesy. Your bastard brother has all your father's graces, it would seem. And I was like, ooh, shit.
Right? That's unfair, though, because, well, no, it's fair, but it's also unfair because I was just reminded that Rob is operating with some information that Tyrion has no idea he has.
Sure.
Right?
But he should not be showing his cards.
Yeah?
I really don't think coming at him in this way, if you don't have anything substantial, is a good idea.
No. Oh. I guess I was thinking because I guess what Rob is thinking is that it's like a show of strength, and even though we don't have proof, we're just putting you on notice that we know you we know that you ain't shit. We're letting you know that we know.
Yeah.
But really, it all seems very unnecessary because Tyrion is here to share this wonderful thing that can make it so that Bran can ride again. And it ends up making Rob look very silly.
And Rob seems to really feel that pretty acutely by the end of the scene.
So but again, Rob's also a child, and he, I think, probably there's a real nothing line too that the seat his father would have been in is empty. Rob is not sitting in that seat. And I just thought that was telling.
Yeah.
And so he is performing this ritual of kind of being tough and in charge, and my sword is out, and if you say the wrong thing, then whatever.
Yep.
But it becomes so clear that this posture was not necessary, and it really, I think, just exemplifies how unprepared Rob is for this role, you know. And that's not like a shot at him, but you know, again, these are children, these are summer children that weren't being raised to lead in some sort of far off future.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't like, no one was expecting them to have to be lord of anything, you know, in the next 2 months. So they've just been thrust into all these different positions. And none of them have been prepared for any of it. Sansa's probably the most prepared of any of the children for the role that she's about to take.
For the role in theory.
Right, in theory.
Yeah.
In theory. The role that she thinks she's about to take.
Yeah.
That they told her that she was about to take. Not the one she's about to fucking get. So Tyrion, so Bran, you know, they go kind of explain how this thing is going to work. And, you know, it's very exciting for Bran. And he's thinking about the opportunity to ride and, like, be out in part of the world again. And, oh my God, the direwolves and Tyrion.
Yeah.
Whew. It was about to go down, y'all.
That was one of those moments that I completely forgot about. And when I was rereading and I hear that the direwolves are entering the hall, I have it in my head that these direwolves somehow innately know that Tyrion's a good Lannister.
Right.
And I just expect them to be cool about it. And they are the opposite of cool.
They are not cool.
Yep.
And my question when I was reading it was that, so I'm not sure, like, because I know that Tyrion is innocent of the particular crime that he's been accused of in this part of the book.
Right.
Right. So I wasn't sure I understood that the wolves are just picking up on the energy that they're getting from the Starks that are there, from Robb and well, not Rickon because he's just a baby.
Yeah.
So I guess mainly just Robb. They don't have any. Like, why are they so aggressive to Tyrion?
I think it's honestly George R. R. Martin giving us a little bit of a red herring. Because at this point, reading the first time, you don't know Tyrion is innocent.
True.
So
okay.
I think it's him trying to mislead us, along with the knife being Tyrion's, and like the fact that Tyrion ends his chapter with like, "You wound me, brother. You know how much I love my family." And then all of a sudden somebody turns up trying to kill Bran. It almost makes it seem like Tyrion maybe was just going to put the kid out of his misery and save his brother and sister, you know, like, and it doesn't really suit when we know more about him, but you don't know much about him here.
That's
And
true. Okay.
You know, I think it's him. And I also think it is the wolves sort of like doing the all Lannisters are enemy kind of thing that does reflect Robb's outlook on it all. And maybe picking up on the subconscious thing going on with Bran, because he apparently doesn't remember what happened to him.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, because Tyrion asked him, and when Tyrion asked him that, Bran, because Tyrion says something like, you know, I had heard you were, you know, a very, very good climber, and then Bran starts going, yeah, I never fall, I never fell, I never fell, and I thought that he just starts saying that.
Yeah.
But I guess he doesn't. He doesn't.
He
say
says,
anything.
I never, Bran insisted, he never fell. And that is in his head, that last part. He never fell, never. And the Maester Luwin interrupts. The child does not remember anything of the fall.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like a general sense, like, you are associated with a major threat, but not as acute as you want it to be. Where it's like, oh yeah, they're just like lie detectors who can tell if somebody's good or bad, which is what I wanted, and I did not get that. So he almost gets eaten alive, and he's very aware of the fact that he almost got eaten alive.
And they each have to call off their own. Like, you know, I think Bran calls his off first, And then Rob calls his, and then they have to be like, Rickon, come
on, dude.
You know, so it's not like just one of the Starks saying, you know, heal or whatever controls all the wolves. No, it has to be each individual one has to call their wolf off.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dope.
I love when one of his men is like, "Are you well?" And he says, "My sleeve is torn and my breeches are unaccountably damp, but nothing was harmed, save my dignity."
You know, too, because those, I mean, they're not, well, I don't know how much time is supposed to have passed. They were going to be big. I don't know how big they are at this point. I figure they're, considering Tyrion's size, that had to be an intense moment for him.
Listen, I don't know if you guys have ever been menaced by a dog, but that dog doesn't have to be that big for it to be really,
that's
really
true.
Worrying.
Yeah,
I have been bitten in my neighborhood. Actually, day before yesterday was like the 2-year anniversary of me being bitten by that dog.
Oh my God, that was so awful.
And I have since been followed by 2 dogs. The one I was bitten by was a pit bull, and I was followed by what I think was a bulldog, which growled and was like 2 feet from my heels the entire time for like a block, and I thought I was going to cry.
Oh, God.
And somebody's German Shepherd jumped the fence and followed me and was like dodging at me really quickly in ways that kept making me think it was about to lunge, and then it wouldn't, and it would back off.
I don't see how you're still walking around your neighborhood.
My neighborhood is honestly so scary to walk in, and I've just gotten so used to it, but it really isn't great. But there's not a lot of options for me, so this is where I walk. And yeah, it is, you are just so aware of the fact that the ways that you would normally defend yourself from a person are not going to work here in any capacity. Yeah. And you are covered in very soft skin. And that isn't the case for them the same way. They got hair in the way.
You know that I do not condone any type of animal cruelty of any kind. I do condone protecting yourself if you have to, by any means that you at your disposal, obviously. I have only had I don't even want to say that. I don't want to jinx myself, knock on wood. I have never been bitten by a dog. Thank God. I have been menaced before, and I have been attacked by a dog.
You were attacked, but it didn't actually bite you?
It was going after my dog. I had a puppy. Oh,
okay.
And it broke its leash and came out, and it had my dog like in its jaws.
Oh my God.
And I did what I had to do to get us home safely.
What did you do?
I kicked the shit out that dog right in its fucking face.
I
kicked the fuck out that dog.
That's what you gotta, I mean, it's a puppy, fuck.
It was horrible, and I didn't want to do it, but it had my dog. And I don't know if I would do it for myself, if I would even think to defend myself in that way. But in that moment, like, what else was I going to do? It had my dog. So I kicked it, grabbed my dog, and we bounced. But yeah, like, yeah, out of the stray dogs.
These were both dogs that belonged to the house, but like, which I was walking past.
They're just out,
and they didn't have
on
them.
The streets.
The one I think jumped the fence because it was a tall, like lanky, you know what I mean. And the other one, they notoriously do not leash that dog.
Oh no, it's so dangerous.
I think like the most recent time that I walked past there, they saw it because that dog menaced me more than once.
Now we're talking about irresponsible fucking people. These are irresponsible fucking dog owners.
And the third time that it happened, they were outside and they saw it. And they saw me, like, I stopped and stared at them as this dog growled at me. And I didn't even say anything because I was afraid to set the dog off because it's closer to me than they are to the dog.
They didn't, like, call it or come get it or
They were calling it, but it wasn't paying attention to them.
Oh, no.
So I just stood and stared at them like, are you fucking serious? And finally they like came and got the dog. And I was so livid that I just walked away because I was like, I am about to get into a fight and I can't right now. Like I was on my way to the gym or something. And I was like shaking, you know, it was the sort of like.
See, that's fucking irresponsible people putting you and their dog in bad situations where terrible things happen.
Yeah.
People.
And the fucking
y'all gotta be
bulldogs are
better.
like wads of muscle.
Yeah, they are.
There's like
They're-
just no way I don't think that I would come out on top of that fight. I really don't think so. Like, I don't know. Maybe I've got leverage. I don't know. But I just didn't see any way that that was going to go well for me.
Yeah.
Except that it doesn't have much of, like, it can't jump too much. So it would just go after my legs, I guess. But
Yeah.
in any case, ever since they saw that, I have not seen that dog running around on leash. So I'm
that's
hoping that
good.
maybe they fucking figured it out. But there was another time that what I thought was one of the dog's owners was watching it come up to me. And he kept telling me, just push him off, just push him off. And I don't know, I thought he was the owner, and I'm realizing maybe not. And I said something like, maybe you could get your fucking dog. But he was clearly like either really drunk or really stoned and didn't seem to process how angry I
Right.
was and how dangerous the situation was.
Yeah, I don't like any of
Between
the things that you said.
the
I
dudes
don't
that
care
are
for any of
cruising
this.
in this neighborhood trying to like pick me up because they think I'm a sex worker, and then I have a neighbor next door who is a little unhinged and likes to play with a hammer. I just don't love it.
Bitch, get a treadmill.
You know, I said that to Owen, and he was like, where would we put it? What if we have guests? And I was like, yeah, but we live here. And he was like, yeah, I guess. I kind of do want to get a treadmill, though.
Get a treadmill. You can't be... It's about to be wintertime. The sun's going down early. You cannot be out on those fucking raggedy-ass streets with all these weirdos and weird dogs. And
It's just such a shame because when you're heavy as me, getting a treadmill, you have to pay a lot for a treadmill. You can't get one of these like janky $300 treadmills. You're too heavy for it. So I would have to pay like $800 for bare minimum.
Get out.
Yeah. So
I mean, how heavy do you know?
they have almost all of the ones that are like in my price range. They tap out at 260 pounds, and I am 285 pounds as of right now. So,
Shit.
yep.
Well, we got to come up with something because you can't be walking those streets.
Yeah, this is why when people are just like, you know, talk shit about intentional weight loss, I'm like, I get it. I really do. But I also would like to be able to function in the world without just spending a fortune on everything because I'm charged more because I'm heavy. So, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's that whole other conversation.
Right. So I got us off on a wildly digress because I talked about Tyrion and these damn wolves.
It's a scary moment, though, and I just felt it in my soul in a way I hadn't last time.
I bet you did.
Got that scar on my leg still. And I love Rob finally comes back and he's like, hey, I was too hasty with you. How about you come in after all? And Tyrion's like, fuck you. Go fuck yourself. I know you don't want me here. I don't want to be here. This was bullshit. You were an asshole. I hope you feel stupid. I'm out. I'm going to go get me a honey. And that's pretty much it.
So Rob carries Bran back to his room, and then I almost cried again because he is just feeling overwhelmed and sad, and he's talking to Bran, and Bran is kind of asleep, but not all the way to sleep.
Is this so sad?
You guys, I can't believe how touched I was, several parts of these 3 chapters. I really didn't expect to have an emotional reaction, but, here I am. And, he's, what does he say to Bran?
He says...
At first he's like, I wish that I could talk to him, or because at first it's like Rob doesn't think he's listening, or he thinks he's sleeping.
Let's see. But oh god, I forgot about how before all this they mentioned that like Benjen Stark is gone and probably dead.
Oh my God, that's right.
And Robb is like, he's not dead. And Yoren's like, yeah, all right, whatever.
My uncle is not dead. Which is also, probably not the way the Lord should react to that news, that emotionally.
Yeah, probably not.
But again, these are just kids.
So here he says, Bran asks, are they ever coming back? Yes, Robb said, with such hope in his voice that Bran knew he was hearing his brother and not just Robb the Lord. Mother will be home soon. Maybe we can ride out to meet her when she comes. Wouldn't that surprise her to see you a horse? Even in the dark room, Bran could feel his brother's smile. And afterward, we'll ride north to see the wall. We won't even tell Jon we're coming. We'll just be there one day, you and me. It will be an adventure. An adventure, Bran repeated wistfully. He heard his brother sob. Ugh. Stabbed me in the heart.
Yes, really. And then he reaches out his hand for it, and oh, guys, I just wasn't ready.
Yep.
I just didn't really think that would be any of this would get me. But yeah. And the chapter, how does the chapter end?
That's it.
Does that end when
he heard his brother
his
sob?
hand?
The room was so dark he could not see the tears on Robb's face, so he reached out and found his hand. Their fingers twined together. Oh. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Whew.
Right? I know.
I almost don't want to finish reading. Because I'm already so emotionally invested, and I know the horrors that are coming, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to read it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I'm going to take it. I just, I'm going to be a mess.
Yeah, I sense that for myself as well. They're having more empathy as a grown-up probably makes me a better person and yada, yada, yada. But it's so inconvenient. It really doesn't feel like a pro. It just feels like, the older you get, the more you are stripped of your armor and made to just feel exposed all the time. And just like a nerve that's just out there that can be just like a wind breezes over it and you're like, oh God. But maybe that's
it's I wonder now, you can't ever go back, but I wonder what it would have been to read these, before the show, so that I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep it, a buck with y'all. I am probably glad
that you know what's coming.
That I know it's coming. Because I don't know how you just read this shit and not be prepared for the horrendous shit that's coming.
I really don't think I could have made you read this as a totally unspoiled. I feel like I would have felt like I was being too mean to you.
This, for those of you out here who experienced these books, and was completely not knowing what was coming next, what a fucking mind fuck it had to have been. You're just reading along and you're into it and stories are happening and then everybody's dead.
Everybody.
And you're just like, what the fuck has happened? And I still got more books to read. How dare you think I'm going to come back and read your next book after you just pulled that shit?
Yeah. And it really is something too when the show, I'm just going to say, people joke about how he killed everybody who watched the show. If you only watch the show, it's way worse in the books. I'm just going to warn you now.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's very different because you get so much more invested in people because you know them better. Mm-hmm. So I find it to be a lot more painful than just a character who appears maybe every other episode on a show. Not even every episode, like... but yeah.
Yeah. So this should be, I just expect to, be spilling my guts out every time. Yeah. Just, sobbing. Wondering why I'm still doing this to myself.
That's how I felt with some of the stuff that I've covered with Spoil Me. People commissioned it, and I was like, you are just a cruel, mean person. Making me read this every week. Shit. Watching me cry on camera happens so often. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all again for listening. If you'd like to become a patron and get access to... currently, me and Miles are covering Midnight Sun, which is bad. And we'll be returning to Mistborn pretty soon. You can become a patron at patreon.com/unspoiled. And also, if you become a $10 net patron, you get access to great postcards that I make every month.
They are fantastic.
They're very fun. The last 4 have featured quotes from Rashawn on them.
My God, I was on a roll, y'all. I was on a roll.
And then if you're $20 and up, you get access to special bi-weekly episodes that Rashawn and I do together called Unsober, where we just pick a random topic and talk for 2 hours. And Rashawn used to really worry that we didn't have enough to say about certain topics. True. And I think she's finally started to realize that's never going to be an issue for us ever.
It turns out it is not something that I needed to be concerned with. I should have been concerned with oversharing.
The only topic that I felt like I really had to move it along was the sedition episode, which was a lot of advice that I didn't realize was going to be as handy as it wound up being for many people. But, hindsight. But coming up on October 31st, which happens to fall on a Saturday, Rashawn and I always do our Unsobers live on camera on Saturdays. We are going to be having a Halloween-themed episode, and we're each going to wear a costume.
I have to get a costume.
And we're going to have Halloween-themed cocktails. Rashawn's like, we are.
I know.
I don't know. What? I will. Rashawn will have.
You will have a Halloween themed everything.
I will. I mean, you can just my background.
You already have that.
I do.
I, on the other hand, may do a makeup, and I will have a cocktail of some kind. It may not be Halloween themed.
Make it with something orange.
Maybe I'll have it in an orange cup.
Okay, that works.
I have to go buy an orange cup.
We are very different people. I have 2 jack-o'-lantern mugs. I've got souffle cups that are orange and pumpkin shaped salad plates and straws that are striped with black and orange and white and black.
Nope. I have to make a stop at a dollar store.
Well, they will have you covered, but you better do that shit soon because nowadays they are in Christmas mode a week before Halloween.
That's true. I might have missed it. Yep. I might have missed the window.
But yeah, anyway, if you want to hang out with me and Rashawn for, an extra 2 hours every couple weeks, join at the $20 level. So it's patreon.com/unspoiled. And I think that's everything. Oh, and Unspooled. The first episode has been released for this season. Season 6, Rashawn, of Unspooled.
I know, it's crazy.
I can't. And I just started editing the second episode today. It's a real lot of work, but it's super fun. And I kind of freaked myself out a little bit today with the sound effects and stuff. So hopefully, somebody said this last episode wasn't as spooky to them as others have been. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well. And then I cracked my knuckles. So, yeah. Just strap in, everybody. So, yeah, thank you all again so much for listening, supporting us, etc. If you can't become a patron, leave us a review. And we'll see you next week. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey.
Unspoiled Network podcast.